Ah, yes, zombie bills, the legislative equivalent of a bad horror movie. That really shouldn't surprise you at all coming out of the Senate this year. That's pretty much what they've been all session. And not passing the budget? That's the political equivalent of running into a room you can't get out of in an attempt to escape the zombies. We've got lots to do. Come on, let's go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another incredible installment from very high above all the puerile and bombastic twits in the Wyoming Senate. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the depths of the Middle Swamp in Wyoming's capital of Cheyenne. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday. It is fitting and absolutely appropriate that the 2025 general session end with the Senate creating a zombie bill to handle something they should have taken care of before, but instead were too short-sighted and were absolutely trying to curry political favor with their constituents and make themselves seem more conservative than they actually are. They killed the budget that could have very well handled the thing that they are now trying to resurrect a zombie bill to take care of. Confused yet? You should be. But just wait. There's actually more. It was Senator Chris Rothfuss, the Democrat, that made the motion to create the zombie bill so that they could save their political hind ends. And when an actual conservative legislator tried to take advantage of the situation and bring a really conservative bill forward that they should have dealt with the first time, but super ultra conservative Slithers Nethercott left it in the drawer because she doesn't want any election integrity measures on the floor, they killed that one in almost exactly the same vote. I know. It's pretty much taken an entire roll of duct tape to wrap my head up so it doesn't explode and I have to go collect pieces of it later. I think when I get back to the studio, I'm just going to go buy an entire stack of duct tape and I can just have it sitting there just in case something like this comes up and that the so-called conservatives in the Senate are depending on a Democrat to save their political hind ends from the people that they promised that they would do something for. Of course, I'm referring to the shooting sports complex, and to be very clear about it, I was kind of intrigued with it at the beginning, and then I came to my senses and realized that this isn't the role of government at all. You have to admit, it is kind of seductive, creating a giant shooting sports complex, but there again, I don't want the government anywhere near my guns. Secondly, it's not the proper role of government to create shooting ranges and try to make money off of it. The government can't create business development, which was the guise under which this whole thing was developed. But now, I think it's an extraordinarily bad idea. However, that horse is kind of out of the barn at this point because the legislature already voted to create this darn thing and allocate $10 million. But at the beginning of this session, they said, we're not going to do it anymore, and the House voted it down. The only problem being they had already promised a bunch of people that they were going to do this, and so now the work is done, and they're waiting on the $10 million to be released by the legislature. A couple of times the House voted this down, and now the Senate at the 11th hour is creating a bill way past the deadline, which probably has no hope of coming up in the House of Representatives, that even if they do, if they were smart, they'd bring it up and kill it on the spot, just like you would do to any brain-eating zombie. This morning on the live program, I went through this whole thing in detail, and because I'm a fan of never recreating the wheel, if I can help it, I thought I'd just play for you that segment from the live show. Here it is, the zombie bill in the Wyoming Senate. Coming out of the Wyoming Senate, and let me just define what a zombie bill is for you. So that's when you defeat a measure over and over and over again, like Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion has been brought something like 17 times in the last couple of years. It continues to die. I think this is the first year in a long time that Nancy Case didn't bring Medicaid expansion. But it's one of those things. It just keeps coming back, right? It's like the undead. You try to shoot it, and it's still alive, and it's it'll just keep coming after you until you chop its head off. Well, there is one of those situations that's coming out of the Wyoming Senate. Yesterday, the Wyoming Senate brought a bill. They had a bill a brand new bill, completely drafted. They introduced it on the floor. Now, let me explain why this is kind of a problem. Because the Wyoming Constitution says that you can only meet 60 legislative days in 2 years. 20 days for a budget session, 40 days for a general session. That's the one that we're in right now. Tomorrow is day 37. They keep 3 days back just in case you need to override vetoes or whatever, in case you need them. But they can't go past that unless there's a special session. And so when you get bills that are killed, I mean, just think about the process, right? A typical bill has to go through committee, or it's supposed to go through committee. It's got to go through 3 readings on the floor in the House of Origin, and then it's got to go over to the other chamber, and it's supposed to go through committee there, and then 3 more readings on on the floor, and then they pass it, and then it goes to concurrence, and then it goes to the governor. A really long process. And so there's deadlines that they set up. And if you get on the Wild Edge website, right on the front, kind of scroll down, and you'll see a little link that says session schedule, and that'll tell you how they've broken everything up. Well, the Senate has realized their stupidity in not passing the budget. Now, to be clear, I'm not brokenhearted that we don't have a supplemental budget. In fact, the government spends too much money. We operate on a biennial budget, so anything that came up that couldn't get handled, well, I mean, that's just too bad because you didn't get budgeted for it, and I don't think we need to spend more money. We are rapidly approaching a system where we just budget every year. And the truth is, they call it a budget, but it's really not. It's like we continue to spend. Well, one of those things that was in the budget that the Senate killed, they just chose not to address. They didn't even have a vote to kill it. Bo Biteman just decided all on his own not to pass a budget, which is bad because it had already been voted on at least once on the floor of the Senate. So one of those things that was in it was a legislative action for the state shooting complex. Now, let me just be very, very clear about that. Initially, I was intrigued by the state shooting sports complex. I thought it was a great idea. Hey, man, we'll take some money from tourism, which they're probably just going to use it for drag shows anyway. Any pot of money that's sitting around, it gets used for nefarious purposes. So the original idea is we'll take some of that money, we'll put it towards something good, and we'll create this shooting sports complex. Well, upon further reflection, which only took me about a day or a couple of hours, I realized that I don't want the government anywhere near my guns, that it is not the proper role of government to create shooting sports complexes, and certainly not to the tune of $10 million. Well, my friends, we're way past that $10 million mark. There was a bill this year to bump it up to $20 million. Well, with the supplemental budget, that whole thing got killed. Now, remember Bo Biteman's letter that he put out, the press release. We're really conservative, and we don't think we're going to spend any more money, and we don't want to grow government. That was a big facade because what the Senate proceeded to do was start cramming all of their spending measures into bills that were not written for that purpose, and that didn't really have anything to do with that subject. And they openly admit it. In their press release, if you scroll down to the bottom paragraph, and I should have pulled that up, but it says, we're actively engaged in putting spending measures into other bills. Okay, well, that tells you that this wasn't the plan from the very beginning, and really, it was kind of a stupid move, even though it was spending, because you've got all these things that have to be funded or that you've made commitments on, and now you're not doing anything with it. Well, yesterday, the Senate decided that they were going to have a bill draft. Now, remember, according to the session schedule, we've only got one more day, tomorrow, and that's the end of it, unless they stay those 3 extra days. But they had a bill drafted, and they advanced it all the way through the Senate, and now they're going to send it over to the House. Now, here's the curious thing about it. Chris Rothfuss, the Democrat, was the guy that made the motion to save their rear ends and say, oh, well, Here's the other thing with that shooting sports complex. Even though it's a bad idea, even though it's not conservative, even though it's not the proper role of government, and even though we shouldn't have the government, and I got so many things going on, my friends, I'm sorry I'm skipping around, but the other problem with it is the original plan for the shooting sports complex is that the state would pony up the dough to get it started. And then it would be turned over to private hands, and the state wouldn't have anything to do with it anymore. Well, that has gone out the window. Now it's going to be state-run, and I think it's going to be a state park or some crazy thing. But now it's not going to be turned over to private hands, or at least that's not part of the discussion right now. So anyway, supplemental budget. They killed it. No more money for the shooting sports complex. Now, it gets a little complicated because they already allocated that $10 million. And what they put in the bill a couple of years ago was that it required another legislative action to release those $10 million so that construction could start. So in other words, the Senate and the House, they just had to do something to unlock the box. They had to do another legislative action to create the key to unlock the money box so that we could start building this thing that probably isn't a good idea in the beginning. But anyway, the legislature made the commitment. And in Wyoming, we keep our commitments, or at least we're supposed to. But Bo Beitman decided not to do that. He killed the budget, and along with it, this little deal for the shooting sports complex. And so the zombie bill continued. And it was Democrat Chris Rothfuss that bought the motion. Now, without that, they're relying on a Democrat to save a bunch of Republicans that are trying to convince everybody that they are the most conservative thing that has ever locked the Wyoming legislature. Here is Chris Rothfuss making that motion. Take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, pursuant to Rule 4-5A and B, I'd like to move that the Senate allow a bill to be jacketed, assigned a bill number, and introduced past the deadline for presentation and introduction in the Senate. The bill is 25 LSO 802, State Shooting Complex Funding Amendment. Following approval of that motion, it is my intention to then have the bill immediately numbered so that it can be introduced, and then I will make a motion that it be referred directly to Committee of the Whole.
All right. So anyway, there's the motion. And think about this, right? Now, again, it's the second to last day of the legislative session. And what he means by having it directed directly to Committee of the Whole is no committees. Now, if you go look at the bill on the legislative website, they didn't really have any debate. They just kind of advanced it all the way through, all the way up to third reading, and then they voted on it, and then they sent it over to the other chamber. We're about in the middle of this thing, so let's go ahead and get a word in from the people who are paying all of the bills down here with an extraordinary and completely outrageous profit timeout. Cowboy State Politics is brought to you by Morton Buildings. It's almost spring, or at least that's what we're all hoping. And it's time to be considering that building you've been dreaming about all winter. You know, the one that would prevent all of your fun summertime playthings from being covered up in a giant snowdrift. You should call Nick and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They're the experts in metal building construction. They've been doing it longer than anybody else around, and they definitely do a much better job. So whatever your building is, give them a call, 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com.
Many Americans are growing increasingly concerned about the rapidly growing U.S. government deficits, recognizing the additional printing of paper money devalues U.S. currency. To compensate, American gold and silver coins will provide wealth protection. U.S. Coin Capital provides physical gold and silver coins delivered directly to our clients. You can reach us at 1-800-878-2646, uscoincapital.com.
Concerned about the future of Wyoming, but unsure how to help? Honor Wyoming is giving you the chance to create real, lasting influence. And it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. The Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker is designed to empower Wyoming voters. We're cutting through the noise and equipping you with all the info you need to keep tabs on Wyoming lawmakers, as well as the tools to take action on the issues that matter to you most. Keeping a close eye on key legislation in Cheyenne, we've made it easy to stay informed by providing real-time bill updates and timely take action alerts. Our one-click links make it easy to email key lawmakers at the right time. All you have to do is click and your voice will be heard. Ensuring lawmakers are listening to the people they serve year-round. Protecting the Wyoming way isn't a spectator sport. And voting is only half the story. Get involved today and do your part. With the Honor Wyoming Bill Tracker, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Go to billtrack.honorwyoming.org. One thing I can tell you about being down here in the swamp for 2 months is that it makes me want to go to the range. Every single time I do that, the first thing I do is pick up a box of ammunition from the Wyoming Cartridge Company. They're a Wyoming-based ammunition manufacturer, and I can tell you for a fact, my friends, that their ammunition holds a pattern just as tight as any other box of shells that you're going to get off the shelf. So go to their website, wyocc.com. That's the Wyoming Cartridge Company. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the program. That way you can be notified every single time there's a brand new episode of Cowboy State Politics. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Also, Cowboy State Politics Live, the live program that is broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, X, and on Rumble, will return to our regular schedule next week, Tuesday through Friday. And now, back to the bad, poorly made horror film that is the Wyoming Senate. There's a lot of other stuff that happened there because there was another senator, good friend of mine, Sen Steinmetz. She made a motion on the floor to go along with it. You see, the Senate left a bunch of election integrity bills, and frankly, they killed a bunch of conservative bills anyway. But one of those was for runoff elections. So Senator Steinmetz made a motion to bring runoff elections back also and refer it directly to Committee of the Whole. And now here's the thing. It was on general file. It had already gone through committee in the Senate, and they had passed it. Just Slithers Nethercott chose not to bring it to the floor. So it just died along the last day. You know those deadline things, the things that we're ignoring right now? Yeah, that's what Slithers did to kill the bill. See, there's a deadline there to where bills, if they don't get to Committee of the Whole, well, then they just die. So Senator Steinmetz made a motion to bring that bill along with it. Hey, if we're going to do it for one bill, if we're going to create one giant zombie, then maybe we could talk about this other bill, too, that it's already been through committee, that we've already talked about, that's already a good idea, and that's absolutely a conservative bill. Because remember, we were told that the Senate has been super, super, uber-duper conservative this whole time, and nobody in the history of the legislature is more conservative than the President Beau Biden. Right. He's just another liberal that's, and really, liberal's kind of the wrong term for him. Redcoat is a better term because he acts like a conservative. He's a Republican. He's been trying all along to convince us that he's conservative. Go read his op-ed in the Cow Pie. And by the way, if somebody has to continually tell you there's something to try to remind you, they're probably not that thing. I mean, we've all met those people, right? I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative. That's what all these politicians say when they're running for office. And then we find out when they get down here, they are not conservative. So anyway, Sen Steinmetz, somebody who's actually conservative and sticks by her principles, she brought a motion to bring the runoff election bill to the floor of the Senate. Here is that motion.
Because the Senate will likely be considering bills on Committee of the Whole today.
The zombie bill.
Bills on Committee of the Whole today, I move pursuant to Mason Section 187-6K and Section 302 to set the order of consideration of bills on general file by placing the following bill as the second item to be taken up for Committee of the Whole, Senate House Bill 249, runoff elections.
Senator, could you restate the rule again, please?
Mr. President, pursuant to Mason Section 187-6K and Section 302.
Thank you.
All right, so now at the same time, we've got two horses in the race. We've got the zombie bill that they created, and we've got the runoff election bill, both of which could be brought at the same time because, hey, since we're going to talk about one of them, we may as well take a few minutes and talk about the other one. So let's first listen to the vote brought by the Democrat Chris Rothfuss for his zombie bill. Here it is.
On the motion regarding LSO Draft 25 LSO 0802, 26 aye, 5 no.
26 aye, 5 no. Now, that's an interesting number because you would think that there would be a whole bunch of conservatives. We were told that there's a whole bunch of conservatives in the Wyoming House, and you would think they would vote against such a radical idea to create a bill 2 days before the end of session. You would think that that would happen. Conservatives, we try to do things the right way, wouldn't you say? But since it was the leadership in the Senate that canned the budget that already had this bill in it, they have to create a new one. To be 100% completely fair, Sherry Steinmetz did vote for the zombie bill because she was bringing the exact same motion for the runoff election bill. And by the way, real quick, on the runoff election bill, we have a lot of elections in Wyoming because we have a lot of redcoats that end up electing people with really low numbers of votes. For example, Governor Mark Gordon was elected with 33% of the vote his first election. Ogden Driscoll, the former, and I've got an update on him too, he doesn't want to debate me. Anyway, he's never received 50% of the vote. And so the idea with the runoff election bill is if you have two candidates and they're going to have an election, and then one will go forward, and then whomever into the general election, and whomever that is, whoever wins the election, whether it's a Democrat or Republican, they will have 50% of the vote. I think it's a good idea. I think it solves the redcoat problem, and anything that solves that, we should definitely go with. So remember, the vote on the zombie bill was 26-5. 26 in favor, 5 against. Now, let me play you the vote to bring the conservative runoff election bill to the floor. The same thing they're doing with the zombie bill. Let me play you that vote. Listen to this. Pay attention to the numbers.
Anderson?
I'll just play the whole thing
Barlow?
for you. It's better that way.
Boner? Aye. Brennan? Aye. Case? No. Cooper? No. Crago? No. Crum? No. Dockstetter? No. Driscoll? No. French? No. Guru? No. Hicks? No. Hutchings? No. Ide? No. Jones? No. Cole? No. Landon? No. Larson? No. McEwen? No. Nethercott? No. Olson? No. Pappas? No. Pearson? Aye. Rothfuss? No. Salazar?
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Hold the phone. So the guy that brought the original motion for the zombie bill says no to doing the exact same thing that he is attempting to do. Isn't that fascinating, right? It's okay if the Democrats and Senate leadership, which kind of makes you believe that maybe they're in it together, just saying, that's a distinct possibility. So it's okay for them, but it's not okay if it's a conservative bill. And remember, we were told that the Senate was uber, super duper conservative. Yeah, whatever. All right, let's continue with the vote. Can't get enough of this stuff.
No. Schuler? No. Scott? No. Smith? Aye. Steinmetz? Aye. President Biteman?
No.
No, of course.
Closing. Vote closed.
Pay attention to the number.
House Bill 249, moved to Committee of the Whole, 5 aye, 26 no.
What? No. 25 ayes and 26 noes. The vote was exactly the opposite. So you had 26 people in favor of suspending the rules and bringing a zombie bill and doing something they should have handled in the budget. They're all in favor of that. But when it's a conservative runoff election bill, if it's one of those election integrity bills that were brought, no, we can't do that. How is in any way, if what I played for you, conservative? The truth is, my friends, it's not. It is not conservative. The conservatives are not in charge of the Senate. And the people that have been running this whole show, they're redcoats. And I didn't want to be right at the beginning of this session telling you exactly how this thing was going to play out, but I was all over the place. It's really a shame because we really had an opportunity to do this. But next up, let's see here. I've got another soundbite. Listen to this. And this perhaps is the reason why those 26 people voted against doing the exact same thing that they had just voted in favor of. Talk about hypocrisy. But here's Senator Charlie Scott. Now, I mean, he's pretty left. Sometimes I call him Comrade Scott, but listen to what he says. Here you go.
Trying to figure out where the bill was in the process when the committee of the whole consideration ended. It was not listed as being available for committee of the whole on the printed material. Now, whether it came out of committee and got to that status or not, I don't know. And I'm inquiring, was the bill still in committee? So are we attacking the committee process?
Okay, so now we're all worried about the committee process. Now we're worried about the status of the bill. Where was the bill at? Did we talk about it in committee? What was the vote on the committee? They're all concerned about the committee process now, but when 5 minutes earlier, when Chris Rothfuss, the Democrat, brought a bill to save the bacon of Senate leadership, we didn't really care about that. Who cares if this didn't go through committee? Who cares if this bill didn't have any public comment to it whatsoever? Now we're all worried about the committee process. Let's continue.
With this motion, or are we attacking what has traditionally been the majority floor leader's prerogative in terms of
Okay, there we go. Right there. Senator Charlie Scott protecting Senator Slithers. Now, this is a little bit complicated, but Slithers is the majority floor leader. That's Tara Nethercott, by the way. And so they're saying, well, it was her prerogative not to bring this bill. You know, I mean, why are we attacking poor Slithers? You know, she made a decision and we should respect her. But Senate leadership made a decision not to bring the budget. So why not respect Senate leadership's decision? Why should we not respect the prerogative, as Charlie Scott puts it, of the Senate leadership? The truth is, my friends, the Senate is jam-packed, and there's 26 hypocrites, the Wyoming Senate. Remember the vote, 26-5. That tells you everything you need to know. And, you know, there's some people that are included in there that claim to be conservatives and that in other years, in other sessions, I've referred to them as conservatives. But, you know, I mean, that's just the thing about redcoats, my friends. Eventually, they show their true colors. And in this case, they really have. So to sum this whole thing up, 26 people in the Wyoming Senate voted to create a zombie bill to cover their butt on something they should have handled in the supplemental budget, the one that they decided not to pass, the one they decided not to talk about, the one that they didn't take a vote on, that they allowed Bo Beitman to unilaterally break Article 1, Section 7 in the Wyoming Constitution that says no absolute arbitrary power. And now, at the last minute, they've created a bill to save their hind end so that voters won't hold them accountable for it. But when Sen Steinmetz does it to move a conservative bill to the floor of the House of Representatives, those 26 people vote against it. Well, the truth is, my friends, the zombie bill probably doesn't stand a chance in the House, and rightfully so. That'll about do it for today's installment of the program. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll talk again on Saturday during Weekend Update. But for now, for the last time this year, from the depths of the Middle Swamp in Wyoming's capital of Cheyenne, I'm David Iverson, and this is the one and only Cowboy State Politics.